Hello and welcome. Today I want to share my design team project for Tsunami Rose for the month of April, and I'm using some of the digital photo images that she has in her shop, and I will link that set down below to her Etsy shop. And I'm just showing you some of the types of things you can use as the base for your cards or tags that I'm going to make. Those are the images that some of the images I printed out, and I did reduce the size. They usually, if you use them just as you bought them, they are 4 to an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and I wanted to make them a little bit smaller. I'm showing you some of the materials that I'm going to be using for this project. I decided to try to keep it as simple as possible. I'm using an index card as my base. For this first card, I'm using modern book pages, not vintage, to just show that if you don't have vintage books, you can still make something look vintagey. I glued that on crooked because that's what I do. But I don't think it really makes a difference. It didn't bother me, but it just is, I don't know. I'm really good at doing things crooked. Anyway, I like to tear the edges because I like that look. I think it adds to the vintage look there. And if you wanted a neater image, you could, or neater look, you can, of course, just trim it with your scissors or a cutting board. I'm also distressing the edges of the photographs to make them look a little more vintage. And again, I said before that I wanted to keep this fairly simple, so my idea was to use the book page on the background, the vintage photo as the focal image, and then add some lace or fabric and a little bit of washi tape to these cards. And that's basically it. So you'll see me doing that for this card. I'll show you one other card that I made. On the second card, I think I won't talk as much as I do in the first part. I do have a bunch of laces and fabrics and things there to the right. You can see some of these are vintage, some are modern. I like to have a lot of choices. I take out too many things usually. I just can't seem to help myself. And anyway, I did happily decide fairly quickly what I was going to do with this tag, because sometimes it takes me quite a while to try all of my different options. So I'm using mostly a glue stick to attach things on this project. That glue stick works really well, and I will do a little bit of sewing on that lace at the bottom, so I'm not as concerned about gluing it down with something heavier or stronger. I do use the art glitter glue for some of the heavier pieces, which you'll see in a moment. That glue works really well for heavier pieces. It works on fabric, paper, but you can use any type of glue that you prefer. I also use Fabri-Tac occasionally. I don't know, I just kind of decide as I go along what type of glue I'll be using. I have these little half pearls that I'll use as a decorative item. I can't remember what those are called, but I'm sure most of you have seen those or have those already. Those have a sticky back, but they need extra glue to hold them in place because it's not very strong, sticky. So there I have the main parts of my tag or my card finished. This could be a card or a tag. And then I'm going to add some washi tape as the final embellishment of the card. I think most of the washi tapes I use are Tim Holtz tapes because his have the nice vintage look to them and match the style and colors of the cards I'm making. And as you can see, I do tear some of them. That's a matter of preference, really, if you like the torn look or not. Usually washi tape requires some extra glue because the glue is usually not strong enough to really hold in place. It might fall off if you don't use the extra glue. So I am going to do that with this little piece, as you'll see. So I'm using 3 pieces of washi tape because I think that looks good. You know, usually they say use odd numbers, like 1, 3, or 5 things. You could easily just do 1 piece of washi there. I think that would look nice too. And my distress ink on the edges, I think that if you wanted it to look more distressed or grungier, you could use more distress ink on the background before you start placing things, but you know, that's a matter of preference too. So now I want to add a tab at the top, and I'm going to use fabric or lace. You could use paper too, if you wanted to. There's, you know, a variety of ways you could do that. You don't even have to have a tab at the top if you don't want to. So once again, I'm trying every single piece of fabric and lace that I have before deciding. I think they all look fine, but I don't know. I just have to try everything. Finally settle on that one. I'm going to add a little glue stick there to hold it in place, and then I staple that on, as you'll see in a minute. I like to staple things occasionally to the top. I think it adds a nice little extra touch. Sometimes I sew. It just depends on how I'm feeling. But I've realized that I need to decorate the back of my card because it's not very pretty. And I have that little piece of paper that's really close to the correct size of the card. So I use that. And once again, I think I glued it on backwards. I mean, not backwards, but crooked. But it looks fine. I think it's fine. I think my paper is just a little bit crooked. I mean, cut a little bit crooked. Oh gosh. So anyway, that card is pretty much done. I'm going to trim it up and I'll do the sewing at the end. Then after this, I'm going to show you another one I made, but I made it into a tag just to show, you know, that you can make these into journaling cards or tags. And I have to decide on the base that I'm going to use instead of an index card. So I think if you have file folders, that could work well too. But I'm going to use this Tim Holtz scrapbook paper because it already has a nice decorative back that I like for this project. And I'm just looking at my paper, trying to decide which photo I'm going to use first of all, and then make sure that I like that that design on the back there. And trying to figure out if it's upside down or right side up, which way to use it. And again, really just eyeballing the size that I want. Because of making this into a tag, I made it a little bit taller than the previous card. So I'm going to attach my book page to that side, and then I'll have the pretty decorative paper look on the other side. I think I've got it straight this time. And I'll just say that I attached this photo kind of centered but a little bit lower down because I again am planning to turn this into a tag, so I wanted a little more room at the top, and you'll see that shortly. Okay, now comes the very long process of trying to figure out what lace pieces I'm going to use. I will spare you me trying every single piece I have there and show you what I ended up deciding on. I'm doing pretty much the exact same thing I did on the previous card. And as far as choosing which pieces I'm going to use, again, I think that's a matter of preference because what I think looks good might not look good to everybody else. And I think most of those pieces I have there, I think any number of them could have worked. So try not to stress about it like I do and try 50 different things. Just get a few things and go for it. And the piece I used on the bottom there, I think is actually like from a napkin or a tablecloth, something like that. It's not lace and it's not that vintage either. So as you can see, it's pretty much the same process up to this point. Next, I'm going to turn this into a tag by hole punching at the top. Then I'm going to take all my cards to the sewing machine and do a little bit of sewing. That's completely optional, of course. And I'll come back at the end and show you the cards because I made a couple more after this. Also showing you can also cut the corners into a more traditional looking tag. And there I'm showing you how I sewed. And now I'm just attaching a little bit of ribbon to the top of that one tag. back with a quick little wrap up because I made a few more cards. So I used pretty much the same process. I decorated these with a photo and some kind of fabric or lace and a little decorative piece. I did use a little bit of color on this one because the picture has colors, so I had actually this little scrap left of this ribbon, and I was able to use it on there. So I hope that you enjoyed this quick little tutorial, and hopefully you'll give it a try in your own style. And thanks for watching. See you next time.